Okay, so I'm going to be talking. Oh, so the advocate wants to increase the number of nuclear power plants by 100 by the year 2030. They think that it'll solve all these problems. I'm here to tell you all the problems in this policy. They claim that the nuclear power plants are a feasible, cost-effective solution. This is not true. The base construction costs of nuclear plants alone, here's a quote from the Nuclear Energy Institute. A new nuclear plant represents an investment of $6 to $8 billion, including interest and depending on plant size. So that would be $600 to $800 billion just on construction. And it takes the time it takes to license and build a nuclear power plant is now estimated at a minimum of 8 years. One of the reasons the financing costs are so high. And that was from the Institute for 21st Century Energy. And the costs are not including unforeseen costs either. Also, the more plants means that there's going to be fewer bidders, longer lead times for the key component parts, and as well as higher prices because of competition. The advocate also claims that the additional nuclear power plants will solve the problem of global warming. The energy generation is not the main cause of global warming today. Jim Green of countercurrents.org states that energy generation is responsible for only a modest percentage of global greenhouse gas emissions, as low as 9% by some accounts. In some broad terms, the replacement of all fossil fuel-fired electricity plants with nuclear power would be unlikely to reduce global greenhouse emissions by more than 5 to 10%. Not even close to the 60% reduction required to stabilize atmospheric concentrations of greenhouse gases. Also, the nuclear power plants still emit carbon dioxide at other steps of the nuclear energy cycle. Kurt Kleiner of Nature.com says that while it's understood that an operating nuclear power plant has near zero carbon emissions, the only outputs are heat and radioactive waste, it's the other steps involved in the provision of nuclear energy that can increase its carbon footprint. Nuclear plants have to be constructed, the uranium has to be mined, processed, and transported, the waste has to be stored, and eventually the plant has to be decommissioned. All of these actions produce carbon emissions. And even if the plants could fix the global warming problem, it still wouldn't be helped soon enough because of the construction time of 8 years. It would just make it worse. The affirmative claims that the plants would solve the resource problem, including foreign dependency on oil. Instead of importing oil, we would have to import more uranium. In a chart posted by the Northwest Mining Association, it says that the U.S. annual uranium consumption is 55 million pounds for the 104 reactors that we have. And the annual U.S. uranium production is less than 4 million pounds. They said that we'll be able to increase it, but that's 51 million pounds that we have to import. And that's without the new power plants. Also, the uranium levels will deplete faster with more plants. The Energy Watch Group posted in Uranium Resources and Nuclear Technology that after about 2020, severe uranium supply shortages become likely, shortages become likely, again, which will limit the extension of nuclear energy. And even more plants would make this sooner. The nuclear power plants also use a lot of water for cooling. A little less, Jim Green, again, states that less well known is the fact that nuclear energy is the most water hungry of all sources, with a single reactor consuming 35 to 65 million liters of water per day. An increase in the number of plants would only increase the risks involved with nuclear technology as well. The more plants would only multiply the risks of leakage, system failure, and meltdowns. Brian Marshall and Robert Lamb report that for many years, the Chernobyl disaster stood as a prime worst-case example of nuclear malfunction. In 1986, the Ukrainian nuclear reactor exploded, spewing 50 tons of radioactive material into the surrounding area, contaminating millions of acres of forest. The disaster forced the evacuation of at least 30,000 people and eventually caused thousands to die from cancer and other illnesses. They said that it was just one example, but is that risk worth taking for energy? More plants would also make more dangerous nuclear waste, which is a potential terrorist target. Brian Marshall and Robert Lamb again report that on average a nuclear power plant generates 20 metric tons of used nuclear fuel, classified as high-level radioactive waste. All of this waste emits radiation and heat, meaning that it will eventually corrode any container that holds it, and it can also prove lethal to nearby life forms. John Large, who advises governments, companies, and non-government agencies, said that transporting waste by land routes is prone to accident, open to malicious act, and requires additional packaging and handling for transportation. He said that it would be a major target for terrorists. The allocation of resources and money for nuclear energy also takes from the advancements of other safer alternative energy sources. The nuclear and other energies are in the same budget, so the allocation of more money towards nuclear could potentially take from the research and development of these alternative energies. The research and development for alternative energies takes a lot of money to come up with and test with the new technologies. So, in an article called Solar Energy Research in the United States, it states that the solar energy industry is still standing on shaky legs, but this will certainly change in years to come with the emergence of new solar power technologies. Solar energy just needs a bit of time and, of course, a bit of money. So, without all this funding, we can't invest in the research and development, so it won't be able to, the new technology won't be able to come out. And this technology will be able to compete with nuclear. Those are the problems with it also.